Recording in progress. Just before we completely kick off, can I get you to turn the screen share off just so I can say hi to everyone in real screen time? Hello, everyone. So, Paul, I'm the Dean. Nice to see people here. This is Decker, who has just been mentioned, my large, incredibly friendly dog. He will sleep through the whole thing, which is good. But I do like people to get to meet him. Okay, that's it. Now, can we go back to screen share and let's talk about study?
Yes, we can. Hold on, where's my button gone? All right, just give me a
There we go.
when you want me to change.
Okay, well, welcome to Metavision. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're online for maybe an hour. As Kate said, please feel free to throw questions in. The way we teach here is not didactic. It's not about PowerPoints where someone reads information off the screen. We'll put an idea up, we'll talk about it, but then we really want interaction from students because that makes it so much more interesting for them and more engaging for us. So as you have questions, feel free to call them out, type them up, whatever. We're here to answer those for you. Can we have the next slide, please, Kate?
You can.
Thank you. So this is us. We've been around since 2004. We've been teaching in this area in holistic counseling for 20 years. We attained accreditation with PACFA. So PACFA is the Counseling, Psychotherapy and Counseling Federation of Australia. That's one of the peak bodies that manages the profession. So there are an awful lot of requirements that PACFA ask of colleges to make sure that we're teaching quality information to a sufficient depth that we are pushing students enough to make them question the world around them, but also making sure that we're holding and supporting and being really kind as people do that learning. We are also accredited by TEXA. Anyone who has worked in higher education will know that TEXA is the big, scary, but completely necessary government department that oversees tertiary education. So it's the Tertiary Education Quality Standards Agency. To get accreditation with them, we need to show that what we're teaching is grounded in theory, is grounded in science. We need to show that the people who are teaching it are qualified, that they have an in-depth academic understanding of what they're doing, and in terms of this type of work, that they have the emotional capacity to teach this content. We need to show that we're continually reviewing and updating our courses. So what we're teaching now is not the same as what we started teaching in 2004, because the state of the art of counseling has developed over that time. TEXA need you folks to know that if you're going to invest a decent chunk of money with us for your career, you are going to have graduate outcomes at the end. So we have to show that what we're teaching is related to what is necessary for a clinician to go into practice at the end, and that we're going to graduate people who are employment ready. So our idea is to make you examine your life, make you question what you think you know. We're going to teach you some skills, and then we're going to ask you to introspect on how they apply to your life. I'm sure a lot of you have done therapy, and if you have, that's great. And if you haven't, I hope you do, because it's enlightening. We're going to help put all of those things together, the theories of counseling, the theories of how the world operates, what we call micro skills do, and how they help draw people out to create their own change in their lives. And we're going to get you to weave all of that together with a big, sometimes daunting, but fascinating chance to examine who you are and how you are going to become a healer. That's what we're after. So we use an holistic approach. We're not just teaching you the basic counseling skills of paraphrasing and summarizing. We're going to get you to help your clients to understand that their mental health is part of their physical health, it's part of their social health, it's part of their spiritual health. We work on the idea that everyone is going to engage in those realms to different degrees. I think this is the psychotherapy college I've worked, fifth psychotherapy college I've worked for. And I've loved the time that I've spent working and teaching in these areas. This is one of the very few colleges that really asks you to put yourself into the field. It's not just about teaching the skills. It's about helping you understand, why do you want to do this job? What do you have to bring to the clients? What are the things that you have experienced along the way that have worked well for you or have made you feel challenged or compromised? How can you bring that into the classroom space on one hand and then the clinical space at the other? What's your engagement with society? What's your understanding of social concepts? My first training is as a sociologist, so I'm always really interested when people start examining the social world that they live in. So what's your role as a woman in Australia? What's your role as a man in Australia? What are the ways in which gender shapes us into certain behaviors? Why do women engage with mental health professionals often easier than men do? And if we talk about men being not quite so engaged, I would actually say, well, wait until you meet them in clinic, because men are amazing as clients. They're so open to the idea of examining their lives and making change and making their lives happier and making the lives of the people who they live with better. We ask you to look at yourself as an individual. We ask you to look at yourself in terms of your connection to your community and to broader Australia. And then beyond that, what is your engagement with the realm beyond the physical? Do you have any sense of spiritual engagement? So we have teachers who will come in with a Buddhist perspective. We have teachers who will come in with a range of spiritual engagements. And then you'll get me, who's the dean, who's a very lapsed Catholic, who doesn't have that, but sees the importance of spirituality in people's lives. And I look for indications of spirituality in my own life that aren't necessarily the textbook ways in which I grew up with. This is what we want you to do. Ask yourselves, who am I? How did I get here? What's working? What from my life up until this point can I use as a springboard of knowledge for people to help them make their lives better? Studying in this area is, of course, it's challenging because we're going to ask you about some tricky moments in your life. And I promise we will be there to support you if you unravel, because students will at times, and we put people back together because that's what therapists do. And the clinical team are academics and we are clinicians. So we know how to hold that space while asking the tricky questions and allowing you to develop your own sense of personal and professional persona that emerges at the end of this degree. What else do we do? We have in-person intensives. So I'll talk about the degrees we offer. The grad dip and the masters both have in-person intensives, and they'll go for 5 days at a time, and a great deal of learning happens in that because you get in-depth time with your educators, and then you get that interpersonal interaction with your peers. Again, thinking back to the way other colleges teach, they tend to teach on a modularized model. So you'll do a subject here, you'll do a subject there, you'll go off and do something else. The people who you studied with in the first unit, you might come across them in the fourth unit. You might work with some people on several units across your degree. We work on a cohort. When you enroll, the students who you enroll with are the ones who will walk with you for those 1 or 2 years. So much of the learning is done in those interpersonal interactions. And that's one of the things I find most exciting about Metavision. We can give you textbooks, we can give you journal articles, we can give you theories, we can get you to do practice sessions, but so much of the learning is what you get when you're interacting with those peers who you will develop really intense relationships with over that time. And you'll probably find they go on to be long-term professional and personal contacts for years afterwards. There will be times when you clash with someone, and that's great because we will help you put that clash back in place and find out, what did I learn? As an example, we had at one of the intensives recently, two students talking, and then one kind of got a bit annoyed, and you could feel the passion kind of building up. And she was in control, and she expressed her frustration, and she was a little bit angry. And then 10 minutes later, she went, I just want you all to know that I had a really intense emotional reaction to what was happening. And since then, I've thought about this and X, Y, and Z. And now I'm feeling a lot more understanding. And thank you for letting me talk that through. And I thought, wow, she processed that emotional knocking together of heads and came out the other side within 10 minutes. Oh, that was good. I have seen students go, you know what, I really disagree with you, and I'm angry, and there's a bit more of a flare up, and sometimes that takes longer to sort out. But we give students the tools to sort out those clashes in the intensives, in their interactions across term. And this helps students take those skills home into their own lives to understand how they respond to stress, how they respond to frustration. And that then gives them the insight to understand what's going on with their clients. So the intensives are not just about giving you a whole lot of content in 5 days. It's about developing relationships with people in that time. We work on what we call inner work and self-knowledge. So a lot of our classes will start with inner work, which is a kind of meditative practice where we ask students to ground themselves and to find out what they're feeling and literally where in their body they're feeling it. What is that telling them about their current state, their current understanding of the world? So it's very much woven into the course with the idea that the more we do that, the deeper the self-knowledge we develop. We have the next slide, thanks, Kate. Okay, so as I said, we work on a holistic approach to healing, and we know that becoming an adult is an ongoing process and it's challenging. And we want to know what's going on for you cognitively. What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? What are the emotions behind it? Physically, what's happening? So if you were to say to me, what's going on? Okay, cognitively, my mind is running at 1,000,000 miles an hour because I love these conversations. Emotionally, I'm in a very happy space because I'm happiest when I'm talking to students or walking my dog. Physically, what am I feeling? Slight tension in my shoulders. Now, I know that's where I carry tension. Now, for me, that's an energizing state. It's not a problematic one. But we would help you to understand with your clients the idea that you need to tap into the body. Your mental health is part of your overall health. What are your physical states saying? When you're communicating with someone, in process-oriented psychology, we talk about channels. So what are you hearing from someone? But also, what is your physical sense saying? Where are you exhibiting tension or excitement? We teach you to tap into different ways of communication: auditory, visually, smell, touch. What do all of these senses say about how you're communicating and what signals you're giving and receiving? So we have a structured developmental model in our course where you're building on that knowledge. You're building on those developing awarenesses of senses as you're doing the study, as you're interacting with each other. A lot of our work is based on Eastern ideas of health. So the idea that the mind and the body are two separate things, it doesn't really work for us. For us, it's all connected: the mind, the body, the spirit, the emotions, the soul, the psyche, whichever words you want to put on those concepts. For us, it's all part of the whole. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at how a physical symptom can be a manifestation of emotional distress. How do you begin to unpick that? How do you begin to get a client to understand what's going on in their physical body is actually a manifestation of the distress that they're feeling internally? Okay, we look at that connection of feelings, sensations, meanings, thoughts, and how it changes across the life's journey. Can we go on to the next slide? Thanks, Kate. Okay, what is holistic? It's everything: mind, body, spirit. It's the whole of the person. It's really engaged in ideas of self-awareness, personal growth. Kate, are you picking up any background noise at the moment?
No, it's all good.
Okay, good. All right, there's gardening going on next door. I just need to make sure that you don't get whippersnippered out of awareness. We're very much client-centered. So we're working on a Rogerian model in a lot of ways. So Carl Rogers is the founder of what we call third wave counseling, which is where the relationship with the clinician and the client is as important as any technique you're going to use. It's not about lying on Freud's couch and Freud sitting at the end of the couch, not looking at you, and you just free associate. Like, really interesting model, but there's a huge power differential there. We're working on client-centered, where we're helping our students become into the space with the client on an equal level. It's about developing empathy and understanding and finding that the healing operates within that sphere. But then we're adding the process work of Arnold Mindell on top of that and looking at what we call the process, the interactions between the client and the clinician. What's going on at the first level, where the client's aware of what's happening? What's going on secondarily, where it's things that are in their subconscious? And what is there in what we call the edge, the barrier between awareness and subconscious? How do you help a client step through that barrier to understand what else is going on beyond what they think they're coming to see you for in the first place? It's collaboration. It's not us being experts in anything. It's about drawing people into conversation. Speaking of conversation, if you have questions, just throw them in at any time you want. Okay, can we jump on to the next slide? Thanks, Kate. Okay, so we're looking at a continuum of awareness. We're looking at the role of the past in shaping the lives of our client. If you want to go further back, the lives of your family, the lives of your ancestors, we're looking at projection into the future. What is your role going to be when you graduate? What's your role going to be halfway through your career? Last winter, I went to Hervey Bay. A friend of mine turned 90, and she's phenomenal. She retired at 88. So, you know, this is the kind of career that has an incredible trajectory. The more you do it, the more you are able to attune yourself to your clients, the more you're able to engage with them, the better we get at the work. She's enjoying her retirement now. She watches the whales go past her apartment in Hervey Bay. She goes out for lunch with friends, but she had an incredible career. And that's what we want to set you guys up for. The idea to do something that is so personally engaging and professionally fulfilling that you're not going to think, oh, thank God I turned 65 next year, I can finally cash in my super. We want to set you up to do something you want to keep doing. So it's about what's going on in your internal life, in the spiritual world beyond your physical life, your understanding of the world and the community. And community can be your local community, or it can be your city, or it can be your role in Australia more broadly, or as a world citizen. the more you understand those bigger concepts, the deeper the understanding you'll have about your role as a clinician. Thanks, Kate. Okay. We treat people as people, not just as students. We're looking at your growth in a whole range of areas. I've kind of hinted at that. It's about your emotional growth, your mental health, your awareness, your physical stability, and understanding how all of those things are intimately linked. We will offer appropriate personal support. We're not going to be your therapists, but we will make sure you are well supported. We do have a student welfare officer who is always available. We do require that you engage in therapy across your degree. Again, this is one of the reasons I love Metavision, because other colleges that I've worked at don't want to talk about their students going into therapy. It's like, what if it's too hard for them? Well, if it's too hard for them, they need to do some work on themselves. And that's the fun work. I've done therapy at various points across my life, and it's always been really illuminating. So we really do encourage that you do at least 5 hours a year. And that, again, enlivens you to the sense of what we're teaching and how you can see the role of therapy in developing your own awareness. All of our staff have been in practice or are still in practice. All of our staff have academic qualifications. So we're not a fly-by-night college. We've been here for years. We literally have staff who have been teaching here for 14 years, which is pretty incredible. When I came on board, I was asked to apply for this job. The things that attracted me were, we encourage students to do therapy. Tick. We have a cohort model. You can't replicate the learning that happens in a cohort model without the cohort model. Tick. What were the other things? We have a 94% retention rate. That means 94% of our students who start go through to completion. That's kind of unheard of in higher ed. That made such a difference to me, getting really excited about coming here. So these are the things, the fact that we have staff who have worked here for so long. We have graduates who have come back to be teachers. These are the things that make Metavision feel like a really solid, engaging academic experience for people. If you come in, I think you'll feel that sense pretty quickly. When I started, I was thinking, this just sounds too good to be true. Is this a cult? And I went to my first staff meeting. I'd already met several of the exec team, and the interviews were great and so on. And then when I went into the first staff meeting, Logan, the CEO, said, I'm going to do a welcome to country. And it wasn't the generic, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work. It was like a 10-minute meditation on the meaning of land and the historical significance of different races who've been engaged in Australia over those years. And it wasn't rushed. And it was about getting a physical felt sense of the room you were in. And even though it was online, it was about how to connect with these people electronically and develop a sense of community. And at that moment, it's like, yeah, this is not a cult. This is actually just intense, caring support and education. These are things that are really hard to quantify until you do it. And then you go, okay, that's what Metavision is feeling like.
Paul, we actually start every meeting like that, don't we? We start all of our staff meetings with some sort of inner work that one of the staff members does. And yeah, it's always a beautiful way to start the day.
Like when you come in, you'll get to meet Anne, who's our placement manager, and she just does the most spectacularly moving inner work experiences. And sometimes it's 2 minutes and sometimes it's 10, but it's such a good way of grounding yourself. So the extraneous noise goes and you're able to just be present. And this is the kind of thing that we weave into our classes and our intensives. It's a wee bit hippie, but we always have a candle in the middle of the room. The last intensive that I went to, no, the one before that, Arnie Mindell, who's the founder of process-oriented psychology, had died a couple of weeks before. And we did this absolutely spectacular grief ceremony where we acknowledged the work that he had done and how he had shaped this really beautiful model of counseling. And everyone spoke about a loss that they had had. And it was wrapped up in this really wonderful ceremony that Christina, the founder of the college, had created for us. I would say at least half of the class were in tears at some point through it, but really beautiful, moving tears. That's the kind of thing that other colleges get a wee bit scared about. Don't make your students cry. Well, we're quite comfortable if you cry. It's part of the process and what you can learn from that. So it's not didactic. It's not just PowerPoint. It's engagement. It's demonstration of the skills. It's pairing up and practicing the skills in arenas that are really supportive and not daunting. We're not going to make you do it in front of a whole class in your first intensive. We're going to let you pair up. And then we'll get you to pair up with a third student who'll watch and observe and give you feedback, and then you'll swap roles. And then later on, you'll do it with an assessor. We build your skills and we build your confidence around enacting those skills as we go. We weave in aspects like mindfulness across everything that we do, because as we say, it's not just about someone's emotional state, it's about their entire physical and beyond sense of self. Okay, next slide. Thanks, Kate. Okay, 74% of our graduates work as holistic counselors. This is the kind of data we need to feed back to TEXA. They need to know that our students are going to have positive employment outcomes. 26% seeing over 10 clients a week, 64% outside of major metropolitan cities. COVID was awful, obviously, but one thing it taught us was you can do this kind of study without necessarily going into a big university and sitting in a lecture theatre. And it showed that you can do this kind of clinical work and really connect and engage with people. I've literally had clients from one side of the country to the other. I've had clients overseas, and it's been as engaging as doing clinical work in a practice office. The skills help you in other areas of your life, in areas of your relationship. And the experiential environment, the ability to practice those skills in the weekly tutorials and breakout rooms, in those face-to-face intensives, that is seen by 90% of our students as vitally important to their learning, because it pulls learning from being an academic practice into an embodied exercise. We can tell you about all kinds of things, but when you actually start to do it and you feel those skills begin to become more natural, that's when the learning really does start to solidify for you. Next slide. Thanks, Kate. Okay, so we have a graduate diploma in counseling, holistic practice. We also have a graduate diploma in counseling, holistic practice, online only. The difference between those two is the grad dip has the 5-day intensive. The grad dip only, all of the work is done online. We also have a Master of Counseling and Holistic Practice. That one is PACFA accredited. Now, for PACFA accreditation, you need a specific number of live face-to-face hours. And at the moment, what you need is the first grad dip, which is the first year of the Masters, and the second year of the Masters. Then you can be a PACFA accredited therapist. We designed the online only version for people who already have PACFA accreditation. So there are people who are qualified therapists, they're already registered, they're accredited, they want to learn our model. They don't necessarily need PACFA accreditation to get their career up and running. So that's why we have that online version. We also have a demand from students who are overseas who don't necessarily want to travel to New South Wales 3 times a year. So that's why we've got the online one. Most students are obviously going to want to engage in the face-to-face intensives because they are fascinating, but the online has been designed so that it is still as engaging. It's just for people who don't need that face-to-face requirement for professional registration. I hope that's all making sense. If you're not sure, we can follow that up with discussions afterwards. Next slide. Thanks, Kate. Okay, so that's the new version. It is TEXA accredited. It's been signed off by Tertiary Education Quality Standards Association. It does not have the in-person intensives. It goes for 18 months. So 12 months of study and then 6 months of prac. Perfect for those who already have a PACFA membership. You can then enter the master's program. And as long as we ensure that you have enough face-to-face hours, you can then turn that into a PACFA accredited master's at the end of that. Okay, next slide. Thanks, Kate. Okay, grad diploma, both versions are TEXA accredited. The master's, TEXA, and PACFA. Thanks, Kate. Okay, how to get in. To get into the grad dip, you need to attain what we call the inherent requirements. Now, that's the ability to think and operate at a certain level, to have the cognitive ability to structure an argument, to read at the level that we're after, to have the emotional awareness of yourself to be able to do this study. We're not necessarily looking for people who are completely balanced in all areas of their life. If you're currently experiencing anxiety or depression or a range of other mental health states, that's fine. We can work with you and we will support you through that. A really large number of people who want to work in this area because I've been through the mill emotionally, and we will make sure that you are supported while you do that. To get into the grad dip, you need an AQF level 7, which is a bachelor's degree or above, which includes counseling skills or training in what's called a cognate area. So cognate to counseling would be, you may be a nurse or a social worker or a teacher. That will get you in. Or you can have a non-cognate degree. One of my favorite students ever was an accountant. And I said, why did you want to move into this field? And he said, he was in his mid-30s. He said, I've made a lot of money. I've made a lot of people really rich. I feel like my soul is drying up. It's like, wow, that's a great reason to want to do this. He was thriving. If you're coming in with a non-cognate degree, we want a bit of relevant experience. Have you volunteered anywhere? Have you been engaged in community? We also want you to complete a bridging course, which is a 7-week skills-based course. If you don't have a degree, there is a pathway where you can come in. We need to know you've had significant engagement in community, either as an employee or as a volunteer. And we have a longer bridging course, which runs for 8 months, which gives you the foundational counseling skills as well as the academic writing skills. We don't want to enroll you in a course that needs you to write at a certain level if you're not going to be ready for that. So we would want you to commit to doing that course to train your writing skills and your basic foundational counseling skills up to a certain level, and then we bring you in. And everyone gets an interview, basically just to make sure that everything that you've written in your application form is kosher, that we feel that you are ready for it, that you've ticked off the boxes. There is an application form where you need to talk about what about your life journey has brought you here? What about your emotional life that makes you feel like you're ready for studying in this area? Okay, next slide. Thanks, Kate.
Can I just add to that, Paul, if you don't mind? Those that don't have the AQF level 7 and need to move through the special enrollments, so showing that you do have something similar, you can pop your name in the chat and I can give you a call later in the week to have that discussion, because it is based on an individual experience. So if anyone feels that they're in that boat, please pop your name in the chat and I'll reach out to you. All right, next one.
And what these courses is about your personality and your awareness. High school is often really crappy. I hated it. I failed it. Oops. And what I found was when I got to university and I did a pathway course into it, the world opened up at that point. So if you struggled at high school, there is a way into a fulfilling career. And I can't tell you how much better life can be when you've got the training to do something that's significant and important and meaningful. It really is life-changing. And this is why I love working with adult students, because they're really engaged in the process. So to come into the masters, inherent requirements, which I ran through before, AQF level 8, which is the grad dip, or an equivalent graduate diploma from another college with counseling skills, and attendance at the interview, where we'll talk through how you feel you'll fit in with what we're teaching. Next slide, thanks, Kate. The intensives, so 3 a year, 2 of 6 days and 1 of 3 days. If you're going part-time, there's 3 3-day intensives a year. They're held in the Southern Highlands. Students find their own accommodations. Sometimes they'll often stay at the same motel. It's a really engaging experience where you're spending so much time studying and going over ideas and theories and experiences together. It's a requirement for Pack for membership that you have those face-to-face hours. And it's a really engaging way of getting to know the students who you're working with. Everything comes together in an intensive. Next slide, thanks, Kate. Okay, course fees for the grad dip, 22,490 and 47,575 for the masters. There is an early bird discount until the end of November, and there are payment plans where you can pay by semester, and it can be fortnightly or monthly payments to factor that into your weekly, monthly budget. I think that's it. Is that the last slide, Kate? Yes, it is. Okay, can we turn the...
We can. We just had a question in the chat that I thought maybe you could just speak into. Gemma's asked, what's the length and cost of the bridging course that includes the academic skills, the 8-month course? And does it include the foundational counselling skills? And it does. We're actually just in the middle of launching it, so it's not quite on the website yet, but I hope to have it up there in the next week or two. Yeah, sorry, did you want to speak into that, Paul?
No, because I haven't seen the pricing.
You don't know anything about
I'm on the academic side.
Yeah, it does include that foundational counselling skills as the first 7 weeks, and then there's 2 more blocks to it, and an academic writing block in there as well. We haven't released the price just yet, so I don't have the details yet, but hopefully by the end of next week I'll have everything ready to go for that, so I can let you know, Gemma. Is there anyone else that needed to know about that particular course? No? Oh, okay, I'll let Gemma know, and I'll pop it on everything up on the website as soon as I get it. And then, yeah, it's going to be a great course just for those that don't have any academic writing skills or any counselling experience. They can do the 8-month course, and that will give them everything that they need to enrol into the graduate diploma.
I'm just going to take a moment to say, Guten Abend, Herr Dr. Werner Sattmann-Faeser. Werner is a former... and talking about Werner coming in.
Guten Abend, Paul.
Good Abend. Lovely to see you again. Other questions from folks about the course, about what we do, about where it takes your career?
I have a question, Paul. Firstly, thank you for going through all of that. That's been really helpful. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, since finding out about Metavision, I've been going down the Arnie Mindell rabbit hole. And and I must say, at first I couldn't fully grasp Like my logical mind can't fully grasp the process work. And the more that I listen to him, the more it's landing. I can tell it's obviously very experiential, and there's a lot of language that I don't fully know the framework and things like that. But I'm wondering how much of Metavision is process work and how much of Metavision is process work inspired, but it's its own model. Because I know it's inspired by many different things. I did read that beautiful essay that was many pages long, but yeah, I'm just curious, like how much of that is inspired and how much of that is that, and
Wow.
what is Metavision? I'm still trying to work it out.
It's a good question, and that's really hard to quantify. Obviously, process-oriented work from Mindell is the foundation, but we also weave in the spiritual science of Steiner. We also look at Asian concepts like the Tao. We look at energy. Christina, who set this college up years ago, she's studied with Mindell. She became a Chinese doctor because she was interested in Chinese medicine, because it was looking at the holistic model, because it was looking at energy flows. So that's been woven in with other concepts like quantum physics. And if you say something like that to people who work at the colleges that Werner and I have taught at, management there would have an absolute conniption. Whereas for us, we want you to be open to the idea that there is more to being a counselor than learning how to paraphrase stuff back. And, this is why we have discussions about philosophy and about spirituality, and how Rose, who I work very closely with, who is a Scorpio, and I say astrology is such BS, and she says, yeah, but you're a Scorpio too. And I go, yeah, I am. So on one hand, I don't believe it, but on the other hand, I understand why people are interested in structures around spirituality, and they will have different names for it. I grew up Catholic. My family's from Belfast, and I would call my dad a very Catholic, but a very small C Catholic. And he embodied all of the really beautiful aspects of Catholicism. It was all about social justice. It was all about looking after people. It was all about being nice and caring for your community. And my favorite quote for my dad, because he was a bit of an iconoclast as well, my favorite quote for him was, Jesus is my best friend, but I've been in a lifelong battle with Rome since adulthood. So he loved the spirituality of Catholicism, but he couldn't stand the church, but he still went every Sunday. And, that's the type of spirituality I'm more interested in. I wouldn't call it religious spirituality, but I would call it a desire to be deeply engaged with people and community.
Beautiful. It resonates. I have a background in shamanism, so this is why I'm very drawn to, this is why I'm drawn into this space. The other question that I had was, how does this style of psychotherapy and the skills that we learn collaborate or work well with other modalities? So I'm not sure if you're aware of family constellations, and obviously internal family systems are two things I'm very fascinated in, that I will be doing more teachings on. So I guess I'm curious, do they blend? Are they skills where it's kind of, you can layer it with other modalities, or is it, this is the process and you stick to the process?
It's a philosophy as much as as much as a modality. So it's about having that awareness of the process and how you can apply the process to narrative therapy, to IFS. So yes, completely able to be woven in. We're not dogmatic that you must follow the Mindell model start to finish, or there is no hope. This is going to help you to understand other ways of which you can engage in different therapeutic modalities.
I love that. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Did you have your hand up for a moment, Melinda? Oh, I thought you waved. Okay. I'm going to look at the chat box.
I've just been going back and forth with people. Someone's just asked about the early bird fee. So early bird fees are available till the end of November. You need to have applied and paid your application fee for that to apply. And it's $1,000 off the master's and $500 off the graduate diploma. That's on the website as well if anyone needs to reference that.
I think the application fee is $175 to start the process and to go through.
Someone also asked when applications close. They're open right up till the end of February. But we do ask to hopefully get your application in a little bit early, just gives us a bit more time to get your interview and your paperwork done. And then you're not rushing into the start of the course either, because the course does start on the 10th of March. So we want to make sure that you're prepared and ready. Also booked your intensive accommodation and so forth. So end of February is the cutoff, but if you could do it before Christmas, that'd be great.
Other questions? If you do have other questions that you want to shoot through emails, Kate and I can certainly answer any of them as they come up. Sumi is asking.
Oh, that's the one I've just, oh, sorry, there's a new one.
Yeah.
Yes, dates for the intensives are on the website, and I should know them off the top of my head, but I don't yet. Intensive.
4th of March, grad dip.
Sorry?
24th of March for the grad dip.
Oh, well done, go you. 24th of March. For both
asked me
masters
earlier,
and the grad dip. Yeah, and if you're doing full-time, it will be 6 days. If you're doing part-time, it'll be 3 days, so 24th to the 26th. And then the intensive 2, 4th of August to the 9th of August. And then the final. Sorry?
Rest warmly, Southern Highlands in August, bring a scarf.
And then 3rd of November to 5th of November is the last one for the year. So we have 3 every year, generally at the start of each semester and 1 at the end of the last semester. So those dates are on the website as well for each one. And they get announced for the following year. Generally about August, we announce the following year's dates. We try to get a bit organised. So yes, so intensives are 9 to 5:30 every day, except for the last day is 9 to 1. So it is a full day. There are lunch breaks. There are lots of breaks. There's lots of breakouts. There's lots of interaction. So yeah, they're pretty amazing.
And do you have the master's dates there as well, Kate?
It's the same for the first years. It'll be the same as the grad dip.
Not the intensive dates.
Yeah, they're the same as them. Yeah, all the first years will be in the same.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yeah.
We have first years and second years going on at the same time, so we get a bit. Yeah. Someone's asking. Oh, in March for the masters as well. They're the same. Yes. Juanita to ask that. Paul, did you want to talk about those that enroll into the graduate diploma once they've completed the graduate diploma, the steps to move into the masters if they wish?
You basically apply.
Yeah. Yes.
You've shown that you can study at that level. You have an AQF level 8 qualification. We've identified that you are cognitively and emotionally capable of doing the work. So you get through the grad dip, you can come straight into the masters. If you're not sure about doing the masters, do the grad dip. If you love it, transition through. And a lot of our students do. They will come in for the grad dip, and then at the end of that, they'll go, okay, let's just keep going.
A lot of people that aren't qualified to enter the masters, but they can enter the grad dip, can use that pathway. So there's no difference in what you cover in terms of content. There's no difference in price. It's just a different pathway in.
Yep. Okay, a couple of questions here from Gemma. Are there government subsidies for the courses? No, we don't have fee help at this stage. We will apply for it, but at this stage, we're a full fee paying course, which is why we try and keep our fees somewhat below our competitors. It is, it's a decent investment of your money in your future. Tertiary education is never cheap. But we're sitting at around 20,000 less than most of our major competitors for a master's. And is the grad dip necessary if one has a psych undergrad? So are you saying you've got psych undergrad and you want to go straight into the masters? Is that the question, Gemma?
Yes, that's the question.
You would still need to do, because bachelor's is AQF level 7. So that is your entry point into the grad dip. So yes, you would come in, do the grad dip, and then do
the grad dip is the first year of the masters anyway.
Yeah. Okay, that's a long question. Is it only the intensives that require attendance in New South Wales? Yes. Yeah, you do come to New South Wales for those. We literally have students who fly from different states.
Countries.
We have one student who flies.
We have a few internationals as well.
Yeah, I did my PhD at the University of New England, and we would do 2 residentials a year. And we had students who flew in from Brazil, from Nepal. People will travel for education. I mean, for me, it was easy. I had a 5-hour ride on my motorbike to get to school. It's great fun. But yes, we require you on campus. Second question. Is the practical or clinical, that's just moved. Is the practical or clinical component something we find ourselves, or are you allocated? And if allocated, does the student's state or territory come into consideration? We don't allocate. We do have a placement officer who will help you to find a place. Generally, students do find their own placements, and we provide support in terms of letters of introduction, certificates of insurance coverage, so an agency knows that their public liability is covered by Metavision. So we do offer that practical support. Elise, thank you for all of this. You're welcome. Do you have a perspective on whether it is too challenging to keep working part-time while studying the masters? Look, really good question. You would need to look at what else is going on in your life. How time-consuming is your job? Did you say part-time, working part-time? Look, I think you can. People find ways to make this work. I studied full-time and worked full-time when I did my undergrad. Very tiring, but I did it. Studying and working part-time is definitely viable. You're going to lose some weekends. That's the reality of higher ed. You're going to need to say to people, no, I'm not going to that event, which sounds like a lot of fun. I have an essay to do. And you're going to finish your essay and you're going to feel quietly sanctimonious that you did it and that you got a good mark. This will take up time. That's the point. If you want to make a significant life change, you do have to make some life alterations along the way. But what our idea is to make the courses as engaging as possible so it doesn't feel arduous. It is a time commitment, but we're talking about investing in the rest of your professional career. And that's when it all pays off. And then you can go out for dinner at the end of the intensives with your peers.
A lot of our students do work, have families, have their own practices while they're studying with us as well. So it's just looking at what else you've got on and seeing if you can fit it in. We do offer part-time study as well, and you can switch between part-time and full-time at the end of a semester if that's something. A lot of our students do that. They start off with part-time, see how they go, and switch to full-time, or vice versa. So we're flexible in that respect as well. Juanita's asked how many units there are. Full-time, there's 4 units per semester, and part-time, there's 2 units per semester. So it's exactly half for part-time. And that also helps with payments for a lot of people as well, to spread the payment over 2 to 4 years rather than 1 to 2 years. We've got lots of questions.
Wow, now. Coming through this, right.
Feel free to pop your hand up and ask the questions out loud if anyone wants to do that. How many hours of study should we allocate? Paul and I were discussing this earlier. I'll let you answer this one, Paul.
How long is a piece of string? There will be some weeks where you'll do 6 or 7 hours for the whole course. There will be some weeks where you'll do 5 or 6 hours for every subject that you're studying. There will be the occasional weekend where you have maybe 2 essays due. So you're going to have to plan your time out. But that's where study buddies are really helpful, someone who you can step through the course with. So you always have a study buddy when you're in the course, and we encourage you to develop a network of study peers. A lot of the learning is done in those intensives. So you're getting 6 days at 7 hours. I'm sorry, I can't work out the maths. I honestly can't. I don't know how many hours that is, but there's a decent chunk of your hours in that week. There are weeks where you are going to spend your Saturday afternoon finishing an essay, and you've spent 3 evenings that week preparing it. Hopefully that's fun. I mean, I liked writing essays because it's intellectually stimulating to collate knowledge and then create your own story around it. We do have tutorials through the week. Some weeks there will be 1, some weeks there may be 2. They generally go for about 90 minutes. We record those. So if you can't attend, you can watch it in your own time. We stagger the times of day. Sometimes they'll be lunchtime-ish, sometimes they'll be mid-afternoon, sometimes they'll be early evening. This is taking into account the fact that some of our students are working, some of our students are parents, some of our academic staff are in clinical practice. So they'll be at different times. We'll give you as much notice as possible. So you may have 90 minutes of live classes one week, you might have 3 hours another week. And then there's as much extraneous reading time that you want, because there are obviously readings each week. The more you do that, the more engaged you feel in participating in those online discussion sessions. Placement is full-time. When I say full-time, it's a full-time commitment. It's not 40 hours a week. It's generally 1, maybe 2 days a week for about 6 months. And we provide clinical supervision across the degree as you're doing that. How many people start full-time and drop to part-time? That's a Kate.
That's a Kate question. I think we had about 4 or 5 this year move to part-time, but at the end of the year, I feel like we're going to have a few move that were part-time that are going to move to full-time because they're finding that they can get a lot more done. So it's, yeah, so not many really move between the two. But in saying that, we did only start the part-time option this year. So it's a new thing for us. So I don't know how that's going to be next year. But yeah, if anyone needs to have more of a conversation about that, feel free to let me know. Days and hours of placement are required. It's 200 hours, is it?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, 200 hours, but that's split up between X amount of hours with a client, X amount of hours in the room with a therapist, and then the rest is split up doing other tasks in the organization that you pick.
And that's pretty standard. Well, I mean, that's standard because that's a PACFA requirement. Of hours that you have to be embedded in an agency, learning how those agencies work, and the number of hours that you need to be face-to-face with clients, and then the number of hours of clinical supervision that we require above and beyond. Welcome, Nadia. If you stay on when everyone finishes at about 7, I'm more than happy to run through the slides that I spoke to the rest of the group about.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I messed up my calendar. So sorry.
Yeah, okay. We are recording as well, so you could always watch the recording if you'd like to catch up.
Thank you.
Juanita needs to go. Thank you for coming, Juanita. I think she's gone. Oh. Did we miss anyone's question? Sorry if we did.
I can ask a question, Kate. Hi. Thank you for having us and for the clarifications on anything. It's good to see you, Kate, because we talked already.
We have had lots of conversations.
We did a few times. I just wanted to ask something more about what the grad would allow us to do in the community as community workers, or because it's not PACFA accredited, I read. And so I just wanted to understand a bit of that, because I haven't studied in Australia before because I'm Italian, but I've got my Australian citizenship. And yeah, so I wanted to know a bit more of that, and yeah, what allows us to do once we graduate. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yep. So graduate outcomes. Paul, do you want to answer that one? You might.
Sure. You will get work with a graduate diploma in counselling. Your options open up further with the masters, but you will certainly get work in an agency with a grad dip. We're going to make sure that by the time you leave, with whichever qualification, you're going to be well grounded in the clinical skills that you'll put into practice. We do get students who will do the grad dip. They'll go and do some counselling work at some kind of agency, and 3 years later come back and do the masters. So we're very much about lifelong learning. We do have students who come back and do short courses with us. So it will get you into the profession. If you do the next layer of counselling, of clinical training, you'll get higher ranked jobs or more clinical exposure with clients, but it will get you into the employment field.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul.
Did anyone have any other questions?
Could I add something just for information? I'm working at the senior lecturer at Torrens University in Sydney, and we have the same scenarios happening. As a non-psychologist, non-clinical psychologist, obviously, you don't get access to government agencies. So it will be more the non-government sector, but there are so many of them these days, and including victim services, including NDIS operators, organizations. So you really don't have to worry about it. But it would not really be possible when you look at the jobs that are out there, the government ones. You are not in reach, as well as everything that comes under the APRA, the Australian Health Professional Regulation Agencies. That's also out of reach. For that, you have to be a registered nurse or a doctor or a psychologist. But look, you don't have to worry. Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Paul.
The market is huge. Like in terms of New South Wales, you can't become a school counsellor if you are, unless you are a clinical psychologist. Like I've got a psych major, but I can't call myself a clin psych because my postgrad was in sociology and psychotherapy. But that doesn't mean you can't be a school counsellor in the private sector. And the private sector for education is about half of the schools in the state. So even though there's this sort of reification of psychologists, and I would never bag psychologists, it's because I've worked with some really good ones. The difference between us and them is clinical skills and self-awareness are deeply embedded in psychotherapy training. I did my psychotherapy training at ACAP, and I would love to have done it where I'm working now. But even at ACAP, there was still that foundation of how do you connect with clients? What are the ways in which you utilize the technical skills that we train you along with the self-awareness that we need you to develop over time? There's a concept in therapy called the common factors model. And that basically says different types of therapy will have different degrees of effectiveness. But what really shifts the needle in terms of client outcomes is how aware is the clinician of themselves? How able is the clinician able to connect with their clients? And it's not about becoming your client's new best friend. It's about being likable and trustworthy and approachable. Because if you're going to tell someone you have a drinking problem, or that you've just had an affair, or that your kid's done something really questionable, you need to have complete trust in that person. What the common factors looks at is the biggest common factor is this person trustworthy, reliable, open, non-judgmental? whatever they add on top of that, whether it's CBT, which I don't love, or narrative therapy, or process-oriented, or the conversational model, that's working with the skill set that sits best with that person's personality. A good college will put you front and center as much as the modalities that you will study. Mendel's process-oriented model is really engaging because it asks the student to foreground their awareness of themselves and how they have developed and changed over the years, and how they are able to bring that into the room so that the client can then engage with their own journey. It's never about telling people how to live their lives. It's about helping them understand what's going on and how they are able to make changes. Thank you, Andrea. Nice to meet you. Hope to see you again. Other questions? Cool.
I just wanted to let
Okay.
everyone know that enrollments are open for all of our courses, including our bridging course. If you feel that you're required to do the 7-week bridging course for your enrollment, that starts on the 9th of January. And it is the only one that you can kind of get into in order to enroll for 2025. Is kind of it's right before the course starts, the master's and the graduate diploma. So that's there to enroll. If you have a question about that or want to have a chat to see if you actually need to do it, let me know and we can reach out. Yeah. No other questions?
I do. What are the sorry, you may have shared this earlier. So sorry for asking again if you have. But what are the prerequisites for the is the prerequisite for the grad dip the 7-week bridging course, or are there other prerequisites, academic prerequisites that are needed as well?
Sorry, can you do the question again? I was typing when you started talking.
No worries. I was just wondering for the graduate diploma course, is it a prerequisite to do the bridging course, and or what are the other prerequisites that are needed to be able to do the grad dip course?
Okay, if you want, I can run through all of that information with you, because otherwise I'm repeating stuff to people who started this thing. So if people want to say goodnight, thank you for your time. It's been nice to electronically meet you. And I'll run through it with Nadia now.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.